This Three Beards Media podcast is sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company. When Rob and Chrissy Taylor started following the Kentucky Bourbon Trail in 2012, they fell in love with not only bourbon, but the entire distilling process. Just 8 short years later, in 2020, Revelton Distilling Company was opened, offering an entire family of products including vodka, gin, whiskey, and Revelton Shine. Come visit the tasting room at 1400 West Clay Street in Osceola, Iowa, where you can sample one of their many spirits, including 4 gold medal winners. Can't make it to Osceola today? Not a problem, as you can pick some up at your local Hy-Vee or Fairway grocery stores. Follow Revelton Distilling on Twitter or Instagram at ReveltonDC or their website www.reveltondistilling.com.
This Three Beards Media podcast may contain mature themes, and if you're not down with that, we got 3 words for you. Like the podcast. Nailed it!
Would you like to sample some of my nuts?
Hello and welcome to a special live edition of Old Man Strength, a podcast of Three Beards Media and brought to you by Revelton Distilling Company. I am Tim Johnson, joined as always by Chris Shipley. Chris, how are we doing on this very special evening?
We're doing all right. My chair is sinking. I'm not sure what's going on with the hydraulics in this chair, but all of a sudden I feel like I'm sitting in a tiny chair at a big desk.
Oh, well, good. I'm the important thing is that we're doing something live, untested for the first time. We get to have a whole lot of background noise and mic noise and chairs sinking and all of that. So at least we are professionals.
That's right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not a little bit nervous for this tonight. And in general, I don't tend to be nervous for these things, but I just assume that there are people out there ready to pounce and make fun of me, which is totally fine. I'm just more used to them making fun of you.
See, you get tough skin like me. It's happened my entire life, so it'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'll take care of it.
Yeah, speaking of which, hi Bill. I'm sure you're out there listening and making fun. Anyway, but yeah, man, it has been boy, what is this? Is this the 7th of March? I have no idea.
Yeah, it is. It is the 7th of March. We are we are almost to spring, maybe. I think we're going to get another snowstorm this week, which sucks. So.
Oh, no, you guys are going to have snow? I literally have like 2 feet of snow right outside right now. So, look, man, we are already getting messages popping in, and they're pretty much all just talking crap about us. So,
no, not at all. JT saying, what's up? George has been waiting around. I think, is happening on, he's hopping on drinks and things or something. I think I said that right. I have no idea. That was the whitest way to say that, by the way.
Oh, good. Excellent. Oh, no, oh, that's right. He's in Arizona right now, so he's doing all right.
George is already asking to be brought on.
Well, I'll tell you what, depending on how this goes, we might need to do that very soon. Yeah, man.
Right.
Things have been good. Things have been weird. I've had the last couple of days off of work. My daughter has not had school. She had conferences. We've done a lot of science experiments, a lot of art projects, played a lot of Battleship, a little bit of everything, which has been good because I think I also need a lot of refresher on those things.
Battleship is that's a good game. I felt that poor little girl, like she has a day off of school and you're making her do science projects. I was like,
I'm not making her
no.
do anything. Do you know how excited
no Price is Right, no sleeping in late eating cereal all day long.
She asked to do math flashcards, and she wanted to time herself on the math flat. That's a tongue twister right there.
Yeah,
she wanted to do the math flashcards and then time herself and then see if she could beat herself through those. That's what kind of nerd I'm raising. It's fantastic.
That's admirable. There's no way she's already a better student than I was ever. Clearly.
Well, yeah, no, that's a very low bar.
That's not. There's no need to take a shot. I was giving your kid a compliment. I was already implied that I was taking a shot at myself. You don't need to pile on.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, life has been. It's funny, man. For as quiet as life is, it's also been super busy, and I know that you can kind of relate.
Yeah, I now know what it's like to. I would joke to my friends that are retired and be like, "Well, you're way busier than you were when you were working." I've not been employed since January 9th, and I don't know that there's been a day where I've just kind of just sat in the house and done nothing. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff to do. Stuff has gone on with the boys that I've had to run to Ankeny. I can't tell you how many times I've ran to Norwalk to Ankeny and back. It just so happens something happens and now I'm off so I can go do it. And then, the stuff going on with mom that I had to take care of. So things are starting to kind of slow down with all that stuff. So I don't know, maybe that means that I'm finally going to get a job.
I hope so, because if that means that it finally slows down enough where you're just sitting around without pants, hanging around the house, then I apologize to Stacy in advance, first of all, for that.
I mean, let's be honest. I was doing that while I was working anyways.
Man, that's not an image anybody needs to see.
I mean, I do check to make sure the camera's not on. I mean,
I hope so. I'm beginning to understand why. Never mind.
What?
Oh, I'm so glad that this is our first live stream and that we can only see you from like the chest up, so it's fine.
I got pants on for this episode.
Well, that's one of us.
Oh, look, our
viewership
just dropped. It just dropped completely when you found out that you had pants off.
Are you kidding me? That's not true whatsoever. JT is still very engaged.
He is. He needs to get his middle-aged white guy fill, so he thought he'd tune in.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, man. So I feel like we've got a lot of different things to talk about. Certainly, on this podcast, while we are not just about Central Iowa or the Upper Midwest, there have been some things that I think we've had a lot of robust discussion about that have been happening. So I kind of feel like we have a lot of things we could talk about. Is there any topic you kind of want to start off with?
I'm open. I figure that we have not had a good old-fashioned old man strength episode where we just kind of talk about stuff going on. And I'm sure at some point a Melvin story will pop in there too, or some Melvinisms will happen that'll give us some wisdom as well. So you pick a topic, I'm sure we can talk about it. We got the absolute losing of their minds of these crazy bills that the legislature is putting out here in Iowa. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa's absolutely batshit crazy right now. I don't even know that I want to get into that just yet. Let's start off easy. Let's start off very easy. So
I feel like this is a setup.
No, this is not a setup whatsoever. Well,
it's not a spelling bee. I feel like you're going to give me a spelling test.
Can you use it in a sentence? Country of origin.
Stacy asked me what a preposition was the other day, and I couldn't tell her.
Did you say you shouldn't end a sentence with a preposition at?
No, I did not.
Oh, you should have. She would have appreciated that joke. I know she's not listening because why the hell would she? But no, I want to start off with something easy, and it was a fun topic that came up today from our partner in Three Beards, Anya, who asked about the color of our wardrobe. what color scheme men of Three Beards have in their wardrobe. So you did say that you actually have a decent amount of color in your wardrobe.
I do. I do tend to color coordinate my outfits. I tend to do a lot of matching my hat with whatever color outfit that I'm wearing as well. So I do.
Does that include at weddings and funerals? You mentioned your baseball cap.
I do not wear. It's one of the rare times I don't wear a hat. But to like what Aaron said in Slack today, when you start losing your hair and you go bald, you wear a lot of hats, and that's typically what I do. So, I wear. Yeah, I've got. I do have some reds and some greens and some yellows and things like that in my wardrobe. Of course, I do have that plethora of black and gray and dark blue and things like that. But I pop in a little color every once in a while.
Yeah, I used to wear a lot more color. I just don't. Part of it is like I said, I'm just a sweaty bastard, and my job is physical, and I sweat. So Chris does ask about red, and I know that you do wear red because of Cyclone. I did want to ask.
Right.
I did want to ask this. This was a question that came up for me today that I didn't ask yet. As you and I both get older, I'm not going to just throw you under the bus.
I appreciate that.
I'm not going to just throw you under the bus, but you and I have now been friends for like almost like 3 years, probably close to.
Yeah, it'll be 3 years. I think in September.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen us both get grayer, right?
Yes.
Do you worry at all that wearing red as your beard gets gray/white that people are going to confuse you for Santa Claus?
No.
Let me ask you this: should you worry as you get older and grayer?
No, because I'll give you an honest answer. It's pretty rare in my family, the men in my family, that they go completely white and gray.
Okay, so rare is one thing,
right?
I'm just a fan of trends, Chris, and as I look at some trends, so JT is going to call me Woody Harrelson, and that's a perfectly adequate. I don't even know if that's criticism. I have heard that before, but I don't really know what he's getting at there, other than that I just look like Woody Harrelson.
Maybe. I mean, you're more of the Woody Harrelson from Cheers, who's a little fuzzy on things and not. He's lovable, but just not very bright.
Oh, that's me. Yeah. You're right. I think there's a very clear pattern on this podcast. I am the dim-witted one, clearly.
Exactly.
On this podcast.
We finally have got after 3 years, we've got this whole podcast thing mapped out with proper lineages. No, I don't worry. Yeah, I don't worry about that. Honestly, I get what you're getting at, right? That I'm getting older. I have kind of a belly. I get it. Well,
I wasn't even saying the belly. I'm just saying that you're graying, right? So if you get a gray beard and you wear red,
right?
And you're jolly.
Am I jolly though?
No, that's true. That's true.
I'm kind of an asshole.
To be fair.
Now, if we're talking bad Santa, then okay. Then yeah, now I fit more of the bad Santa. Kind of a dick. No, I do not worry about that. I'm being honest. I don't think the way I grow my beard or anything else that I will be confused with Santa Claus. Sorry. I don't think that.
So JT has already said that I would be confused for Woody Harrelson. Who would you be confused for?
Oh, that's easy. Hold on.
If you pull up George Clooney, I'm fucking quitting this podcast right here on the spot, just so you know.
Okay, hold on. This is where we get to use this new technology that Three Beards is paying for. I would say this is a good one. Okay. Live. I cannot unsee it. Tim. That's what George says.
No, it's true. I have a Woody Harrelson vibe. It's fine. I've got no problem with that. I mean, White Man Can't Jump was a great movie. Zombieland, a great movie. Right? Oh, Vincent D'Onofrio. You think you're Vincent D'Onofrio?
I do think I do. Yes.
Okay.
Listeners, chime in. You think I look like Vincent D'Onofrio? I think that's who I look like. And I tell you, his unbearded version, if I shave, I look a lot like him.
Well, I mean, I definitely see you wearing a fedora. Okay. I mean, like if I close my eyes and imagine really hard, I can probably see it. But I have a very vivid imagination.
Mackenzie says, I'm guessing that's a no from Mackenzie. That's a no from George. It's a no from Chris. I mean, we can talk about who Chris looks like.
No, I don't think that.
That's right,
no,
JT. I'm not weird enough for Vincent. That's right.
Boy, that's a very subjective term there. What stunt? You think he's going to be a stunt double for Vincent D'Onofrio? What stunts is Vincent D'Onofrio doing that he can't do himself? Exactly.
That stunt double actually has to get off the couch. See, Jolene says I look like him.
My mom
could be worse.
Cool.
It could be the
exactly.
Could be the Vincent D'Onofrio from Kingpin, where he's super fat and bald. Which I did pull that. I did pull that look off once. So
I've got no other comment on that.
Why
Olivia Benson? Is that no Olivia? No, those are two different versions of Law and Order. JT, there were a couple.
I have to look up who Olivia Benson is.
So Criminal Intent and Law and Order SVU. So Vincent D'Onofrio was on Criminal Intent, and Olivia Benson, played by Mariska Hargitay, is on SVU, and they did have a couple of crossovers. But JT is largely showing what a Midwestern housewife he is by how much he knows about Law and Order. They had crossovers. Yeah,
we just said that. Listen, the original Law and Order was the best. All those other ones are shit.
I would agree. I would agree with that. There were parts of Criminal Intent that I enjoyed, but yes.
Caitlin will be coming for me in the comments now because SVU is like her favorite show.
Yeah, so I was having this conversation with someone the other day because she was saying how she watches SVU, and her dad was saying, I think her dad was saying, "Oh, that's too like graphic and everyone dies." But then her dad watches Dateline, and she's like, "At least my murder is fake and yours is real," which is fair. But I am also a little bit of a true crime junkie myself, and I don't know why. And I also don't know what it says about me that when I can't sleep, I turn on like the Spotify, the podcast version of 2020 or Dateline or 48 Hours. I would argue that Keith Morrison's voice is just soothing, and he could literally just be talking about, like, he could read like a casserole recipe, and it would probably put me to sleep with this folksy kind of sing-songy voice. But it is way too easy to fall asleep to.
I watched Stacey and I will watch Dateline quite a bit. Shocker, I know we're old, but
I figured you guys would watch 60 Minutes, you old balls.
No, I hate that show.
What?
I don't like 60 Minutes. I'm not 70, okay? Stop it. The episode of Dateline that we watched the other night was probably the first one that I've watched in a long time where it was pretty obvious who had done it, and I didn't want the person to be guilty because I liked her so much.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like, first of all, I have a bias against. Yeah, I have a bias against the system because like too many episodes of Dateline, there's some like DA that's digging in their heels on. Oh, I know they're guilty. Yeah, sure, that DNA evidence exonerates them, but I know they're guilty, right? And so like I
Yeah.
already kind of have like this stupid bias for the accused on there, even if they're like, oh no, like literally he videotaped himself, like he posted TikToks of him in the middle of the murder, and I'd be like, yeah, but did you consider this other like I already have a bias. I get that.
Right.
And,
I don't.
Well, I mean, I think so. Have you ever served on jury duty?
I have not. No.
Okay, so I've done jury duty twice. First time I was the jury foreman. Second time, case got dismissed before we got to consider all the evidence. We only heard the prosecution's case. We left the room. Defense made a motion to dismiss, and it was granted, and we didn't even get to consider the case. But I have done it twice, and so I do. Like I get like how easily people are swayed by flash or opinion or whatever.
Right.
Charm, right? Like people are easily charmed. Like so you and I are old enough to remember the OJ verdict,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
you and I are old enough to remember watching that and being like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like they did not understand how DNA works. Any of those,
Right.
But and we remember a lot of people at the time being upset about it, and then enough of them after the fact going, "Yeah, no, that's right. That was kind of silly." Like now that we understand how DNA works, but we also don't understand like jurors in isolation and jurors in a room. There's a weird peer pressure that happens in a jury deliberation. There really is.
Oh, I'm sure, especially in a sequestered one like that, where they constantly are, they just want to get out of there, right? And I think some people are trying to do the right thing. Some people are just wanting to get out of there. So I have not been able to serve, but I would imagine you're probably pretty right. There's a lot of pressure in there.
Well, yeah, because there's some people that just like think jury duty is like a huge pain in the ass, and there's other people like me that were biased that were probably like, "You mean I get a week off of work where they have to still legally pay me, and I get to hang out here and live out my nerd true crime fantasies already?"
Right.
Like, yeah, like hell yeah.
And they're all sitting there going, "Where's Matlock?"
Oh yeah, no, I was definitely the I kind of feel like we need one more day to deliberate that. What do you guys think? Like, should we just take one more day?
Right.
Maybe at least
Can we stretch this
one
into
more
the
day to
weekend?
deliberate this? Like it is Thursday and I have a meeting I really don't want to go to tomorrow. Could we maybe just stretch it out?
Right.
Yeah,
Mike Dyer
no,
with the I'm not live, but if I have snacks. He's the want to sample our nuts guy from the middle of the opening. So
I forgot about that. I wondered who that was. Oh,
and he's
fantastic.
still pissed I slipped that into the opening now. It's so funny.
Oh my goodness.
Ethan
but
says
yeah,
he's
no,
always wanted to be a juror, but never been able to show up. He's never been asked to show up.
Yeah, I know. You know what's funny? It's like, so my sister got asked to jury duty like 3 months after she turned 18, like literally right after she turned 18, she was asked to serve jury duty. My mom has even been asked for like not only like county jury duty, like federal jury duty. I don't think my dad in his 70 whatever years on this earth has ever once been asked to do jury duty. I understand that it's random and I understand how statistics work. But I've gotten it twice. Right? You've never been asked once.
Well, no, I've been asked. I've never served.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've had to go through the process of sitting there and wait to get assigned and gone through voir dire and all of that.
It's
I
different
like to think
now,
that's just
though.
because
It's different
Why?
now, though, because this last time, which was in November, I did not have to report. I would just have to call in every week and see if I had to report. And then if I didn't have to report, I'd have to call in a week later, and I had to do that for the full month.
Oh, so you do it for the full month. So you were probably assigned to a federal, not a county, because the county isn't a full month. Federal's full month, and you call in. You might have been on the
I don't
federal.
know. It was for Warren County though, so it was not for. It was for the Warren County courthouse. Stacy was the same way. Yep, I think they've changed it a little bit around here. I think that's how they've, since they went to COVID and didn't bring a bunch of people in and make them sit there. They pull a larger.
I don't know. Month. I do think it has to do with it. There's like 7 eligible jurors in Warren County at this point. I think there is partially that. I think
Maybe. That might be.
I think 98.3% of Indianola is already ruled out.
That's also the median age, I believe, of Warren County too. Yeah, see, Delagardelle says the same thing. I had it in Dallas County. I had to check a website once per week.
I don't even believe that, because I don't even believe Dallas County has websites. I don't even think they understand how that works. Are you sure you didn't?
You're such an elitist up there in Minnesota.
Fax something in, Chris. I think. No, I like to.
Jolene says, "See, you don't know. Iowa's different now. My county is 3 weeks. Depends on the number of cases and if they settle." I feel like Jolene knows way more about the process than she should.
Well, I again, I don't know that it makes me. Oh,
she's in Minnesota. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Well,
who knew?
I don't know. I when I was on jury duty here in Minnesota, Jolene, I did not have 3-week assignments to that, but yeah, again, it could matter of what the courts are going on, what cases are going on. I tend to think that for all of the, I don't know, methamphetamine and cow stealing cases you guys have there in Warren County, maybe it's something a little bit different.
Would you mentioned the OJ, you mentioned the OJ trial, and I will say that I watched that a lot. Now, at the time I was working at the store with my dad, and he would sit back there and watch it. He'd be in his office watching. So it was on in every TV in the office or warehouse.
Yeah. I remember we all watched it. Like, we didn't have cable, and it was still that's how big of a deal. I don't think people understand how big of a deal. Like, if you weren't alive or of a certain age when that went on, like, court TV is a thing now. Sure. Right.
Yep.
Like the Robert Durst case went on, and there was court TV was covering all of that. I don't think people understand that in the age of OJ, first of all, the number of people that had cable was a lot lower than is now.
Yep.
Actually, it might be higher, but at the same time, the streaming services and all of that, right?
Right. And the internet.
Yep. And so, like, literally, they were covering this on like all 4 major networks, right? NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox were all covering things regularly.
Yeah, evening programming, they were playing that. So
you were getting it streamed into libraries. Like, literally, I remember being in a library watching the OJ case on a TV with the closed captioning on. Obviously, they don't like the noise, but yeah, like, it was a different thing back then, right? Good Lord, this is where we put the old man strength, Chris.
I know, right?
But seriously, like, it was a very different thing in the way that the entire country was captivated by it.
And then not only did you watch the trial during the day, but then you watched all the news programs or the opinion shows in the evening.
Yep.
You know, that's where Greta Van Susteren cut her teeth and became huge and a big star. That's where Geraldo really he was always on the fringe and was just, a reporter. Now he had his own show.
Say this was post him getting hit by a chair or interviewing Satanists. This was where they actually kind of retransitioned him to a quote unquote legitimate type of newsman. Yeah,
he didn't unearth Al Capone's vault.
Yeah, but it was an entirely different thing.
Yeah, what's up, Joel? Yeah, and I loved it. Right, so now I think to myself, like this Murdoch case that's been pretty prevalent in the news the last, and people were watching that, and I was like, man, I had no interest of watching that through and through, even though I knew, to take it back, the first I had heard of that case was on Dateline about 4 or 5 months
Yeah.
ago. I'd watched the Dateline, and now there's a Netflix special and all this other stuff. But I don't watch as much as that as I used to, and it was really riveting. And maybe it was just because it was new back then, right? It was something different, and it was never on TV like that before.
Well, so I mean, so you think about there was this period where I think. So if I first go back to the Challenger explosion, that was where the dancing Itos on Leno. I totally forgot about that, Chris. That's a complete. Oh my goodness.
I can't even think straight now.
No, I do remember the dancing Itos. That was anyway. Lance Ito. But no, like if you go back to so say something like the Challenger explosion, right? That was the first time where a really wide national audience, because you can talk about other things that happened on live TV or things that happened in broadcast television that happened before then, but there was still a limited audience, people who were watching in real time, people who even had access in real time, whether that be, JFK assassination, walking on the moon, all those things. I know there were people glued to TVs or whatever, but like really, like the Challenger happened with millions of school children watching in real time.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yep.
literally more TVs than ever before were watching that. And that kind of kicked off this news cycle where the late 80s earthquake in California, and then the LA riot, like the Rodney King and the LA riots, and the LA riots, that really, to me, was the beginning of 24/7 news coverage, particularly again on network news. Not like, like CNN is 24/7 or Fox, like whatever, 24/7, but literally like NBC, like the networks covering 24/7 something going on. Really, the LA riots were kind of the beginning of that, right? I remember going, sitting on someone else's couch watching the LA riots happen in real time as that was going on, and you slowly moved up, and then the OJ was kind of almost like the pinnacle of that era, right?
Yep.
Because it combined celebrity with scandal, with a real time interview with Al Cowlings during the chase.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes, Chris. And then Red Hot Chili Peppers wrote about the LA
thunder.
riots.
I was so waiting for a break.
God.
I was waiting for a break so that I could slip that in, and Chris beat me to it. Damn it.
Oh, it's so good. Chris, thank you very much for a call back there. For our listeners or viewers who may not be familiar, Chris really thought that the Red Hot Chili Peppers song "Under the Bridge" was written about the LA riots, despite the fact that the song was written, produced, and released 2 years after the LA riots.
That doesn't mean he couldn't have been sad about how he felt that
day. In his defense,
you'd have a bigger
Iowa,
argument
so he
if
was
that
2
song
years. He
was
was 2
made
years behind
before
the
the
times.
riots.
No, I
Sorry.
kind of feel anyway.
This might be a good time for a break.
Oh no, sorry, it's the opposite. Yeah. Anyway, but yes, this probably is a good time for a break. Why don't we go ahead and take a break and grab a word from our sponsor?
At Revelton Distilling Company, everyone has become a part of the Revelton family. From the Taylors and their daughter who helped perfect their award-winning gins, to the team who installed Lucy, our 33-foot-tall custom-made still, right down to the local farms that provide our coveted corn, and even the cows on those farms who consume our mash byproduct. Want to see the farm to flask come to life? Now you can tour Lucy and find out where we take Iowa's harvest and transform it into our finest spirits. Choose between a 45-minute tour or find out even more by scheduling a VIP behind-the-scenes tour to get the taste of the full Revelton experience. You can visit them at 1400 West Clay Street in Osceola, Iowa, or Find all of Revelton's award-winning spirits at any local grocery or spirits retailer.
If you guys do not
All right.
check out Revelton Distilling down in Osceola, please do go ahead and give Rob and Christy our best. Yeah. So again, as we were saying before that break, Under the
Rita found
Bridge,
something.
1990. Oh, what? Oh, you found the chase.
Hold on. The Dancing Edos. Maybe this isn't it. This is not the Dancing Edos.
Oh my.
Never mind.
Goodness. Oh boy, that was a choice. Thank you.
I should have vetted that a
Thank
little
you
better.
for that. Oh well, but yes, no, I did have that backwards before. They writes 1992, Under the Bridge 1991. So you thought that they wrote a song
damn it.
before the LA Riot happened? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
I will say my first memory of those, the LA riots for sure. But to me,
Yeah.
what dragged me in the most was probably the Gulf War, the Second World War, the Second Gulf War. The constant, you know, the Wolfblitzer and the embedded journalists. You watched and you got to see some of that stuff for the first time ever in history of being embedded with those people and live shots. I can remember watching reporters in Jerusalem, you know, taking cover because Iraq was shooting missiles into Israel and so on, trying to drag them into the war, and just being mortified of how terrifying that was.
Well, yeah, I mean, like this is the first time that in our lifetime that we saw a general get a nickname of Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf, right?
Yep.
The first time in our lifetime that we knew the name of a missile with the Scud, right? Like this is the first time we understood what was really going on. And you know, for us to not understand, you know, it was post. Technically, selective service was still a thing, but no one was getting drafted in there. There was always a debate of whether or not this is officially declared a war, because who gets to declare a war and what else is going on and what our role is. And you know, I remember, so I was a paper boy at the time, and I remember the front page of the paper that I delivered saying that Iraq had invaded Kuwait.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that meant. But my friend that was on the route with me knew what that meant, which was weird because we were both too young to understand what any geopolitical thing was at all. But
Right.
But he did, because he had, you know, more politically aware parents than me or whatever. But that was kind of maybe like my first foray into honestly international geopolitical skirmishes. I don't know. I don't know what the right thing is, but then it literally became everything, right? Like it became. That's a good point. I completely glossed over that when I was talking about kind of major 24/7 news cycles. The Gulf War was kind of one of those things where, well, because it'd been the first time since Vietnam, really, that the entire country had decided to go ahead and say this is a war, not like a
skirmish
Central American conflict,
right?
Or,
yeah.
Right.
Well,
right.
Yeah, I remember going. It's funny that you mentioned the newspaper, because that's almost my first acknowledgement of that too. Was I remember sitting in a break room at the Yonkers warehouse downtown. I was working there over the summer before I went to Iowa State as a freshman, and sitting in the break room and looking at the paper and seeing that headline. That's a vivid memory of mine. And then going home, I was living with mom and dad and would sit and watch, you know, CNN with dad all the time. He was glued to the TV with that stuff. So,
but it's also one of those things, you know, Chris, that, you know, this is a pre-internet era, right?
Yep.
So you did learn things from the newspaper. Like so many times you talk about how the newspaper is a dying media because they can't keep up with revenue or they can't keep up with stories, but the pace of news, you know, back then you learned about things on a very slower scale. You learned
Right.
reading a newspaper headline, Iraq invades Kuwait, was as close to real time as it gets. And now, you know, you read about that on Twitter, and so by the time it's a newspaper headline, it's already, oh, that's old news.
Right. And for them to want to engage you to read that article or whatever else, there has to be something else in that article that you can't get anywhere else. And in turn, what does that sometimes manipulate the news to become?
So Gulf War was 1990, right? Am I wrong?
I think
Look
it
this up
was-
for me.
Yeah,
1990, 1991,
Yep.
right? So
Let's look.
so to be fair, Under the Bridge,
Yes, August 2nd, 1990.
Okay, so Under the Bridge was probably written about the Gulf War. To be fair.
Hey, he doesn't want to feel that way again. That applies. Desert Shield or Desert Storm. This was shit. Weren't they the same thing? No, Desert Shield. Desert Shield was when we went in and protected Kuwait, I believe. Desert Storm was when we removed them from Iraq with the second Bush, right?
No.
Good old Wikipedia will tell us.
No, you're thinking about Iraqi freedom, which under the second Bush. Desert Shield and Desert Storm were
Yeah, you're right.
were two different maneuvers under the same administration under the first Bush.
That's right. Desert Shield, which marked the military buildup from August 90 to January 91. Desert Storm, which began the aerial bombing campaign against Iraq on January 91.
I'm really
And
glad
close
that
to
we
New
are
February.
live streaming this on Facebook because the only people paying attention on Facebook anyway are boomers. So they're the only people who are going to appreciate this conversation about things that happened in 1990.
We're on YouTube. We're on YouTube.
Well, no, but so you talk about these things that we've talked about, right? Desert Storm 1990, 1991. LA riots 1992. OJ Simpson case was 1994. Like the news cycle that happened within like the 5 years between 1990 and 1995. I wonder sometimes if Desert Storm and LA riots and Rodney King and OJ Simpson, all these things that happened from like 2005 to 2010, would they carry the same weight? If they happened in 2020, because I mean, and I'm here in Minneapolis. We're not quite 3 years removed from George Floyd, and that almost feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, I was thinking too. That does seem a long, long time ago. And man, the amount of coverage for that and for the riots and across the country, that wasn't just locally. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, I mean, it's gotten to the point where there are so many other, I think, frankly, more egregious crimes. You know, like you think about certain crimes that happened. Rodney King, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd. You have these kind of hot button crimes that have happened of police brutality, but there have been a billion other instances that have kind of gotten glossed over, and I don't understand it. Sometimes it feels to me like some of that just has to do with like the nature of the news cycle, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how the news cycle works, and certainly right now I have no idea how the news cycle works today, especially when there's so many other stupid distractions, like the lawsuit that in the what is going on with Fox News right now, and admitting that they lied about the election, and all these
and still
other
traipsing that kid out there, still traipsing that guy out there on air, is what slays me. I found an interesting list of top 60 biggest news moments of all time.
Spy balloon, yes.
Spy
Chris.
balloon. Yeah. Yes. Hey, that was some dangerous stuff. I'll pick a few here and just imagine what that would be like with a 24-hour news cycle now.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, obviously Kennedy's murder and Jack Ruby being shot shortly after that.
Right.
Would be a big one. Martin Luther King. But the one that I saw here was Peter Jennings and Jim McCabe report live from Munich at the Summer Olympics, murders of 11 Israeli athletes and the terrorist takeover.
Right. I mean, that's huge. That should be absolutely a 24-hour news cycle thing.
Yeah, I can't. The coverage of that would just be. It's hard to imagine. Some of these now we're getting into. Here's a few that we did miss: Princess Diana's murder and dying in the car accident.
Yeah.
Some of these I don't know. President Lyndon Johnson shocks nations by announcing he won't run for second term. I don't know that that's a big one.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
that's a big one. You know what's a big one for me that I don't think people have appreciated enough? Do you remember this was probably 1995, 1996? John McSherry, MLB umpire, dies on the field.
On opening day in Cincinnati, right?
Was it open? I think it was. It was early. It might have been opening day. It was early April. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that was opening day, and
okay.
They were just talking about that on the radio a couple months ago when Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field, and what the precedence was for something like that.
Yeah.
So I do remember that. I think that was opening day because if I remember right,
I'm pretty sure you're right. I remember it was early in the season. Like I said, it was like 95, 96, somewhere around there. John McSherry dying. It's one of those things that should not have gotten glossed over as much as it did. Not that sports were important, or it's not like, again, it's not the Challenger. It's not someone that was of note necessarily, right. But the fact that it was America's pastime, it's something that people look to for kind of a break from real life, and it happened in real time on live TV. I think,
yeah. April 1st, 96.
Okay.
Reds and Expos were playing an opening day game. McSherry was home plate umpire. 7 pitches into the game.
Yeah, it's certainly one from my life that I think probably sticks out more than I mean, obviously, again, we've lived through the Challenger explosion. We've lived through the OJ case. Like, we've lived through the LA riots. Not to diminish any of these other things, but there are some
9/11.
We
haven't talked about 9/11, and that there's a generation of people that have never watched a TV show or a news program without the ticker rolling across the bottom.
No, absolutely.
And if you remember right, the reason they had that was because there was so much information flowing in that they had to find another avenue to put that information out.
Jolene brings up a really good point: the Oklahoma City bombing.
Oh yeah.
I remember that taking over. Good Lord. So first of all, I apologize if you came to listen to Old Man Strength and you wanted to hear Chris and I make fun of each other, and instead we're just talking about national tragedies for sure. Right. Joel, yeah, I mentioned the California earthquakes earlier, and you're right. The earthquake during the World Series was absolutely a huge deal. Yeah, it just the Jesus, Boston Marathon.
Yeah,
boy,
there's a lot of them.
This is getting very.
There's depressing. A lot. I don't know that it's history though, right? And it is interesting to look back and see let me ask you this, and maybe we can pivot off this topic, and we'll move to something else.
Yeah.
Earliest news memory that you remember as a kid.
Probably Challenger for me. I mean, I'm a bit younger than you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I was a freshman in high school when that happened.
I mean, I'm sure for you, Reagan getting shot was a big one.
That is mine. That's
Yeah.
that one, or
kinda figured.
believe it or not, Anwar Sadat getting shot. And the only reason I remember that is because we had a school speaker coming to our school that day to talk to us about Egypt and the Egyptian pyramids and all that stuff, and he canceled because he was shot that day.
Yeah, I mean, Chris mentions Iran hostages. The Iran Contra affair was probably pretty strong in my memory as well.
But did you comprehend what that was about, though, or just that it was in the news?
I remember. Oddly enough, I remember reading Oliver North's testimony. For whatever reason, as a kid, so my family was very much a religious newspaper family. We got 3 different newspapers in my house. We got the local, the regional, and the state. We didn't get a national paper in our house, but we did get multiple. And I remember, every morning while I was eating my Cocoa Puffs, I would read through multiple newspapers, and I would read through the Big Peach when it was still Peach.
Yep.
For some of our Central Iowa listeners that remember when there used to be a sports page called the Big Peach way back in the day. How long has that been, by the way? 30 years?
Wow. Yeah, it's probably been 30 years since I've done that. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
But I very vividly remember, I mean, I must have been 7 years old reading a transcript of the Oliver North testimony.
Such a nerd.
Oh, well, I know. Have you met me? I'm sorry. I have cared a lot. We'll get into this in a little bit. Like, obviously, you have seen on our Slack channels how much I actually get involved in kind of the interworkings of how the political system works.
I get it. No, I get it.
Yeah. And I did. I remember in junior high having a debate with my superintendent about who should get the nomination at the Iowa caucus. That's how much of a nerd I was. And I disagree with 7th grade Tim, by the way. 7th grade Tim was a conservative asshole. But
7th grade Tim was caucusing for who?
I don't even remember. It
was Jerry Falwell, wasn't it?
No, it might have been
Robertson.
I think it might have been Buchanan. Actually, it was something terrible.
Oh my gosh!
It was something terrible about. Seriously, it was one of those. Anyway, I do remember reading the Oliver North testimony, like a transcript of that. If that tells you anything about so to be fair, my next door neighbors, their parents were an attorney and like a biological researcher, like a PhD biological researcher. So I was surrounded by also like really big nerds.
Fair.
I listened to NPR from a way too early age.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well,
I'm not even sure I knew what NPR was until a couple of years ago.
Oh no, I've
it's the least shocking thing that's been said on this
yeah, that's true. No, anyway. So I will say that the Iran Contra affair did actually loom pretty large for me, growing up as a kid. But yes, no, I am certainly old enough to remember the Reagan administration. I'm certainly old enough to know that an assassination attempt was made to impress Jodie Foster as a kid. I remember hearing that, but I don't remember that happening in real time. Right. I just remember that kind of after the fact. Like you think about like some of these things that happened within like the last 5 years. Some people that you know don't necessarily remember them in real time, but they know they happened. Right.
Yeah.
That's how I remember the assassination attempt. I would say that the Challenger explosion was probably the first one that I vividly remember. Well, again, because we were all fucking watching it on TV, and if you think about that, what a nightmare that was for a bunch of kids to understand what was, because like they had all talked up Krista McCullough, right? This is a teacher. This is a teacher going into space, and that's why every kid across the country was glued in on that and watching that, was because this was an important. We weren't just sending an astronaut to space, we were sending a civilian to space. Yeah. So that one was, especially because that news was so oriented towards children, I think might have been even more traumatic.
Yeah, they were dragging everybody into class to watch the thing launch.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and it happened so early into the launch process.
Yeah,
it would have been one thing like if they had gotten into space and they'd been in orbit and then something went wrong, but it literally went wrong early. And it was like I don't remember my teacher talking to me about it. We weren't in my classroom because at the time there was only like 7 giant TVs that were on like the big cart or whatever.
Right.
And so I remember going into it wasn't even just another teacher. It was like another grades classroom. There were like 4 classrooms in the same classroom, all watching the thing.
Yeah. Bunch of kids sitting around on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't remember anyone having like a conversation with me about what happened, but also where I grew up, I can't imagine anyone was equipped to figure out how to talk about that.
Yeah,
in real time anyway.
Right, that would be pretty tragic. I think I was in Phoenix at the time. I was a freshman in high school. I think I was in gym class when it happened.
Yeah, I was gonna look that up. I was gonna see what year it was.
Let's see.
Yeah, you're right there. Challenger
28th, 1986.
1986.
January 28th. Yep. So
yeah. So like I said, I was like 78 years old. Yeah.
73 seconds into the flight.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were all sitting watching excited. I mean, I don't know how much of a real-time delay there was, but there also wasn't a delay to stop that. Yeah. So
no, I don't know that there was one, right? It was, I mean, it was as live as it was at that point. I don't know that they were, so.
Yeah, no, that one will probably still be next to 9/11 be the most poignant one in my life, just because we all watched it happen in real time. And 9/11, I actually didn't even get to watch in real time. Like I said, like it's a thing. Like I was at a job. I was out. I was not at the office. I was not near TV. I heard about it. I didn't really kind of process that it was a real thing. And then I watched it all after the fact.
I was listening. I was driving to the store. Dad was actually in Phoenix, supposed to fly back that day to Des Moines. I had heard on the radio just a news report that a plane had hit a building in New York. And by the time I got to work and walked in the back room, the TV was on in the warehouse, and the second plane hit as I was watching TV. And then, an hour or so later, the plane had hit the Pentagon, and now they're shutting all these things down. And at that point, I had no idea if my dad was on a plane or not.
Okay.
So he finally called me and said he was at the airport waiting to get on a plane, and he had to get off the plane. So
so my my now ex mother-in-law was working in Manhattan at the time, and normally shouldn't have been down in the financial district.
Yeah.
Certainly had no reason to be down in the World Trade Center Plaza. And so I started getting calls from her family members. I was getting calls from my now ex-wife's uncles saying, "Hey, is Pat okay? Have you heard from her?" And I'm like, I first of all, I didn't know what was going on at the time. And then when I finally did, I'm like, well, no. She's at like Midtown Manhattan. She's not anywhere close to any of that. It's fine. But I hadn't heard from her.
Yeah.
And I finally did. And she actually had like a meeting down at World Trade Center Plaza that morning. And she had like, for whatever reason, she had like a breakfast meeting, and then she went back to her hotel. So she watched it all happen from her hotel in Jersey.
Oh my
like, literally
gosh.
right across the river. But she had been there like an hour before the first plane hit.
Oh my gosh.
To me, I was like, she always stays in Midtown near the Oracle headquarters. Like, she's not anywhere close to that. But for whatever reason, she was in New Jersey, and she had a morning meeting at World Trade Center. And then she went back to her hotel, and she watched it from the balcony from her hotel room. So like I didn't even realize like how close she was at the time. I didn't, it took like 24 hours for me to learn all of that. And so I was getting all these messages asking, "Hey, have you heard from Pat? How's she doing? Is everything okay?" And I was like, "I'm sure she's fine. She stays in Midtown. It's not a big deal." I didn't get it, but also I wasn't there. So I wasn't like even watching in real time, because I was away from an office, away from a TV.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. So it was all very, very different. So Jolene, you heard this on KQ. You're saying, Tom Bernard's coverage. That's I can't imagine. I'll have to maybe sometime go back and listen to Tom Bernard's coverage. He's not necessarily known for the most sensitive reading of current events. So I can't imagine what that would have been like. But still just all wild in real time.
Yeah. All right. We'll take a break for Kyle, and then we'll come back and we'll hit our STFU segment here in a little bit and then wrap up.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and take another break. We'll grab another word from our sponsor, Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage, and we will be right back.
There was some conversation today on Twitter about to now not being a good time to buying a house. They want to move and buy a house, but because of interest rates and so on, they feel like maybe it's not the best time. So what is your response to that? Because I know that interest rates are higher than they were, say, 2 years ago when Stacy and I refinanced through you, but they're still coming down a little bit. And I think maybe it's a good idea to I think there's a little bit of fear out there of people doing now because they're afraid this isn't the best time to finance.
If there's not a lot of buyers, the sellers are going to be willing to do more. If you are a buyer, they're going to be willing to do, give you closing costs. Last winter, end of 21, beginning of 22, you were insane. It seemed like if you asked the seller to provide closing costs. Now it's a given. Like, it's everybody basically that asks for it and gets it with really no issues. If I'm buying, I'm going to buy before rates go down, because what can I do if I buy a house for $200,000 and my rate's 6% and then rates go down to 4.5%? You can refinance, and guess what? You're only going to owe $200,000 minus whatever you put for a down payment. Instead of the rates go down, you pay $225. Your payment's going to be probably the same, maybe a little bit less on the $225, but your neighbor's still going to owe $25,000 less than you, and they're going to have the same rate as you because they're just going to refi.
That's from our continued series with Kyle and the First Time Homebuyer series. So,
which I think is
It's-
fantastic. If you guys aren't checking out Kyle and the knowledge that he has, if you're looking to buy a house, not even just a first time home buyer, I can certainly tell you right now that the market is challenging right now. While it may not be a seller's market because the market is rough, the interest rates are high, it's not a buyer's market, it's a challenging market right now. But if there's anyone who can actually give you sound advice as both a seller and a buyer, I think Kyle really understands what is going on in the market right now. Very sound advice. So Kyle, thank you very much for that. Chris, I think it's probably time for us to pivot off of being just terrible old men talking
That's right.
about all of the tragedies that have happened in life. Is there something that you want? I mean, there's been a lot going on here recently. Is there anything that you did want to talk about that is not just things blowing up or people dying?
I don't know. With the last 2 months that I've had, I'm not so sure I'm the guy you should be asking.
Well, okay. Well, then here I'll pivot here, and I'll even use a segue here.
All right.
Speaking of things that are imploding and complete tragedies, what is going on in the University of Iowa athletic department?
I don't know, but I have to address this comment first from Cole, my neighbor. Hey, Cole, when this podcast's over, I'm going to come over there and punch you right in your face. So David Montgomery is not going to the Chiefs and knock it off.
Okay.
There's a tweet out there reporting that he's, first of all, if David Montgomery has a really, really close relationship with Matt Nagy, then I would suggest he needs serious psychiatric help. That would be my first problem. So, but yeah, let's talk about something fun like the University of Iowa. Man, what a shit show that is. I can't even imagine. We jokingly talked a little bit in Slack today, and in my defense, I was reluctant to ask the question because I really didn't know the answer, and I figured you were going to hammer me and make fun of me, and you slightly took the high road. But Ted Leitzico's tweet about the president refusing an interview by reporters, I wasn't sure who that was. So when I read the tweet, not knowing who she was, I thought it was like, again, you're gonna make fun of me. We head of the weekends, we talked to the University of Iowa, and they came back and said, no, we won't talk to you. And that's why I put it in Slack and said, hey, when is the firings going to come at this point? Not knowing there wasn't a president of the Board of Regents.
Well, there is a president of the Board of Regents. There is certainly, which, by the way, he is actually an Iowa grad. Just so you know, there is a president of the Board of Regents.
Okay.
But the Board of Regents acts like, I mean, honestly, man, if you've ever worked at a Fortune 500 company and you've looked at that board, first of all, in the private sector, boards are usually made up of the founder or primary investor's best friends. So they don't really provide, like, for instance, when I was at Buffalo Wild Wings, the board of directors was chaired by the guy who had previously been, he might have still been when I was at Buffalo Wild Wings, but he was previously like the executive vice president of design at Best Buy from when I had been there, James Damian. And not to say James wasn't a very smart guy, but a board of directors meets quarterly. They have no fucking clue what's going on in the business. They have no clue what is going on in the business. And I would argue that the Board of Regents, not like, it's great to see representation. Like the current Board of Regents in Iowa, Kim Reynolds did appoint a student at the University of Iowa on the Board of Regents. So there is, a mixed representation. But they still don't really have. How can you expect a board of what is it, 8 people, I think, to really understand all of the ins and outs that's going on. Especially, so Iowa is a small state. They are not a large state. They might be the smallest state with two AAU universities that are actually in 2 different conferences. And I know that athletic conferences don't seem like they play a role in academics, but they do. Funding from particularly the non-revenue sports really goes back into the academic coffers. And so you've got Iowa might be the only state anywhere near its size with 2 Power 5, 2 different Power 5, 2 AAU schools, plus Drake and UNI. And I know Drake is not part of the state university system, but you have a university system in Iowa that is very unique. Then you look at Minnesota. Minnesota's larger than Iowa. We have one state university system that is the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, and a bunch of these smaller things like Morris or whatever that are not that are still technically part of the state university system, but you don't have another competing school. You've got reciprocity with different states because there's different things going on. Iowa historically has really tried to segregate their academic programs by school rather than letting the schools even compete against each other. And the regions historically, again, appointed by the governor, so it's not anything that like the voters are voting on. It's not anything where there's any real representation. The Minnesota State Screaming Eagles. Thank you, Chris. I'm sure Craig T. Nelson is very happy you brought that up. But the Iowa approach to state education, in particular, the regents have made things that have been done largely along ideological grounds. And that's why you already have these situations where it literally takes someone like Rob Sands saying, motherfuckers, we have seen how many state settlements like legal settlements happen. What is it going to take to remove someone?
Yep.
Right. And for whatever reason, the president doesn't necessarily have the power to do any of these things anyway, without the backing of the Board of Regents. So if the president says, I'm not going to have any statement, well, it's because what statement are they going to have to contradict the Board of Regents? Because the first thing, first of all, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. You don't bite your boss. Right. And the president reports to the Board of Regents. So what are they really going to say? And so when you have a 3-panel jury that Rob, the only one making sense in all of this, full disclosure, friend of the podcast, Rob Sand, but also the one making sense. Right. The one literally like if there's I love Rob. I'm certain he has political aspirations beyond what he's already doing as the auditor. If there's one thing he has learned, there's one thing that can unite all Iowans is that Gary Barta is not good at his job. Although I would argue that Iowa State fans would probably keep on encouraging Gary Barta to stay in that role. But I think what is happening with in particular is there are a lot of ideologues that are making things happen for the state public education system in the state of Iowa that really fall more along the lines of all the other problems that are going on with the state and public education system in Iowa. Chris, when you and I were growing up, Iowa was one of the best in the country for public education.
I took the Iowa basic test skills in Arizona, because it was the standard. Right.
And standardized testing aside and all of the things that are there.
Right. But I'm just symbolism. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. And now I think, some of the things I'm seeing coming across the Iowa legislature's desk that they're honestly seriously considering scare the shit out of me.
Well, I read something before the election cycle. I can't remember where I read it, but it's a playbook that's being played out in legislatures across the country. And it's you look across, it's not just Iowa. You look at Missouri and Florida and most of the red states, there's a playbook of specific legislations that are being introduced in these legislatures with the exact same language and the exact same effect.
Absolutely, you're not wrong.
And I'm not putting Iowa as saying that they're off the hook. What I'm saying is that people need to realize there is an agenda here of what they are going after and what they are targeting, and why is that? You need to ask why.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say that makes Iowa unique is that Iowa didn't used to be this way, right? I'm never saying that
Right.
I'm not saying that Iowa was a blue state, but it's the state of Tom Harkin, right?
Yep.
It's the state of Tom Vilsack. It's the state that went very heavily for Barack Obama. It is a state that has. Sure, it's the state of Steve King, but it's a state that was largely purple, if not blue, for a while.
Yep.
And to be so fiercely and strongly red is surprising, for sure. I mean, I think some of that has to do with the brain drain that we're seeing in a lot of states, and I think some of that has to do with man, I'm telling you, I love Iowa, but the declining population, it's speaking volumes for what's going on. The aging population. Des Moines has done a really good job, I think, of helping to maintain. I think Des Moines has done a better job in the last 10 years than they did in the 30 years previously of trying to actually maintain
100%.
a youthful population.
100%.
But I think when you see some of the ideological things, and you as someone married to a school teacher can see that I'm all about individual freedom when it comes to education. I have a hard time parsing between making sure everyone has individual freedom and a party of small government trying to make sure that the state pays for individual freedom. Like, if you're literally of small government, why are you offering to give money to people to make that same choice? Like, if you're not going to pay money to fund things that are obvious, like we all know that at this point it is empirically true that schools where students' lunches are paid for have better performance because kids that eat learn. Like, I don't know,
Yes.
that's not even up for debate at this point,
Right.
But the fact that those things are up for debate for people, well, I don't want to pay for someone else to get lunch, but the state should offer tax credits, whatever, to people to be able to go learn whatever the F they want, whether or not that it conforms to any type of standards. You see that if I'm seeing that at the elementary level, I can't expect that there's not going to be some carryover to the university level. And I think what we've seen is I've had a problem with the regions for 30 years, but I think it's gotten even more ideologic in the past 10 years than ever before. And I don't expect that the regents are going to do the right thing. Certainly not the right thing for the taxpayers of Iowa or the students at the University of Minnesota. The number of comments I saw on those posts about how I'm sorry, I'm quoting here. The phrase "scumbag race baiters" was brought up to talk about the student athletes that brought the case in the first place.
Yep.
Multiple independent agencies came in and said yes, there was
Right.
a clear policy of discrimination here. Multiple independent agencies came in here and did this. This was not just people, bringing there's this weird, it smacks of white privilege. But the fact that you look at that Board of Regents and they reflect strongly the same culture of Iowa that is forcing bad public education policy at the kindergarten level. And I think that's where I really, really, really struggle. And why I don't have confidence that the right thing is going to get done. I'm sorry, that was a rant, but I have opinions.
No, and I think that's well warranted. I don't disagree with anything you said. I run the gamut a lot on these education bills because I see some of the things that are affecting right off the bat. This voucher bill, for example, the Des Moines Public School Systems has to cut $12.5 million out of their budget next year. Caitlin just got a first grade teaching position. She's moving to second grade, and one of the jobs that was at a school that she applied for and almost took the job got eliminated this year. So, I've said before, I'm sitting here now 2 months in, and haven't had a job. I'm not entirely sure what would happen if my wife, who's had over 30 some years in the district, at that point, they look at her and say, okay, we need to make a cut. She makes X number of money. We can hire 1.5 of these younger teachers coming in here at that price.
Yeah, it's the this is definitely not age discrimination.
Right. No, 100%. And then there's a bill going on in Ankeny now through the Ankeny School Board that's going to cut several programs and jobs. And they're afraid that there's going to be a pretty bad exodus of Ankeny teachers that leave.
And Ankeny, by the way, I'm not saying Ankeny has not been one of the most explosive school districts in the entire state. But they decided they didn't have enough room, and so they built a whole nother high school.
Right.
They got exorbitant pretty fast over the last 15 years.
Right. We're gonna call in an audible here for the Steph Copley segment. So you ready to go for that? And then we'll bring on one of our listeners here.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. We're gonna take a listen to Steph Copley's sponsor segment, "Shut the Fuck Up," and then we'll come back with our new person.
Hey everybody, it's Steph Copley, the woman behind the STFU segment on the Old Man Strength podcast. When I told the guys I wanted to sponsor this segment, they recommended that I make a charitable donation instead, so that's what I did. I chose the Young Women's Resource Center in Des Moines, Iowa. They're a nonprofit that supports, educates, and advocates for girls and young women ages 10 to 24. Their whole goal is to make sure that these young women become strong, self-confident, and successful. And if you know me at all, you know that aligns with my goals as well. If you're interested and would like to donate, check them out at ywrc.org and donate today. And remember, don't forget to STFU and listen every once in a while. Thanks.
What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at, first of all, I love Steph. My only worry about Steph is that she was dumb enough to sponsor anything for us idiots.
It's for a good cause.
Oh, it's for a great cause. I'm also laughing at Fifth Element rules.
Yeah, I know. He's such a douche. Also, whatever you're listening to this on, you need to turn it down.
What?
So if you're watching this on a different device, Chris, you got to turn that down. There's a lot of feedback.
I can barely hear you. Am I really loud?
Yeah. That's all right. There you go. That's good.
Yeah, perfect. No, you're good now, Chris.
All right.
I'll try
Fifth
to. I'll
Element
just try to
rules.
talk quiet.
That's his shut the fuck up moment. Is Fifth Element rules. All right, I'm kicking him out of here now. All right, so Chris, you know the gist of this. Tim and I get to shut the fuck up. You get to say whatever you want. God help us.
Is that how this works?
You've heard this podcast before. Do you not listen this deep into the episodes?
You don't even listen this deep into the episode, Shipley.
I don't know if I've heard this particular segment.
This segment is at one point, believe it or not, Tim wouldn't shut up. So Steph told him to shut the fuck up so that she could get a point in.
I can't imagine that. All right, so I don't get a prompt or anything.
That's your prompt. You get to say whatever you want without me interrupting or Tim.
So no, here's your prompt, Chris. You've got 5 minutes to air out your grievances with Shipley.
Oh man!
And I know I only gave you 5, so you have to be selective here.
I don't want to kick him while he's down, though.
Yeah, because that's never stopped you before.
Oh man, it just feels wrong.
All of a sudden, Della Gardell has a conscience.
I was gonna say,
hey,
I don't know. What
should have brought on Dyer. Dyer would have ripped me within 5 seconds.
Probably.
All right, so Chris, the floor is yours. Chris and I are gonna shut up. What's grinding your gears?
What's grinding my gears? Honestly, with the stuff you guys were talking about, with some of the stuff that the Iowa State government is trying to do, I mean, I agree with both of you guys. I just don't understand where it's coming from or who these people are, because it just seems like, 10 years ago, I mean, just like you were saying, Tim, I mean, it seems like a different state. It honestly does. And I don't know if it's all just they're just trying to put forth stuff that they know isn't going to pass, but that their particular base is going to appreciate. I feel like that's a lot of it, because some of these things, like the gay marriage one, for example, that's never going to work. They can't take those rights away. Now that we've had them for however many years it's been. I mean, the first thing I thought of when I read that was, what happens to, do people get grandfathered in? All the people that have been married since then, when it was legal, what happens there? So I don't get it. But hopefully we can, like I said, I mean, the stuff will very likely get shot down, and hopefully we can make a change to where we don't have to hear this kind of stuff anymore.
It's certainly been changed to now that they want to legislate out of fear rather than out of leadership. You can't lead by keeping people fearful and scare and the boogeyman. The one that set me off the other day was the tweet with the video from the guy from CPAC who was talking about transgenderism needs to be eradicated.
Right.
I've kept off Facebook and I've kept off some of those for a while, but I posted a pretty big rant about that. That is straight up Nazi 101 out of the playbook. You take a group of people, you blame them for your entire problems, and then you make it a point to eradicate that problem by removing them from society. That shit's dangerous.
Yeah.
And scary. And John, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, from Comedy Central, who
Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart's
Stewart.
video that's floating around on the gun debate.
Oh my
says
gosh.
it perfectly. Says it perfectly.
That was amazing.
Yeah, you want to legislate people and infringe on their rights, but not when it comes to the number one killer of children,
Right.
which is gun violence.
Yeah, I mean, I had said on Twitter that like I don't care how my child identifies as long as their primary identifier is alive. And I stand by that. I do think one of the challenges with what that Jon Stewart video had was that the rules of engagement have changed. And we're seeing this right now with all of the testimony showing that all the Fox News executives and Tucker Carlson have shown through their text messages and through their emails that they know they're lying. And yet you see Tucker Carlson yet this week doubling down.
Yeah.
And posting irrelevant video of Jacob Chansley and saying he should be exonerated. And you see like it's because they know it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And so snark from the left doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many, like, I mean, first of all, I'm guilty, man. I've tweeted multiple times that I have never registered for a political party. I was never excited about Hillary Clinton. I was never excited about Joe Biden. But I did vote for both of them because I was not excited about Donald Trump. Right. And so I am in some ways I'm part of the dichotomy in that I am against one side, but that doesn't make me part of the dichotomy because the dichotomy itself is false. Right. I just don't like one extreme. And I can say that, first of all, there's no dissonance in my mind of saying, hey, the Republicans are terrible. And you say, well, the Democrats are also terrible. Like, that's true. But like punching my grandma is not as bad as stealing a candy bar or is worse than stealing a candy bar. Right. Like there's like, I can differentiate between the two crimes and I can say that both crimes are terrible, but one is very worse. And so punching my grandma is worse than stealing a candy bar. And the Republicans are punching my grandma and the Democrats are stealing my candy bar. Like, I don't have to say that I align with stealing a candy bar to say don't punch my grandma. And that's kind of what's going on, is that there are these problems that I know that sensible, smart people in Iowa have a problem with. They have these weird. First of all, the Democrats are literally the farmer and labor party, and who is voting for Republicans? It's not the farmer or the labor, like right? Like the blue collar people and the farmers, the people who need help from the state, aren't the ones voting for Democrats in Iowa. They're actually voting for Republicans. They're voting against their self-interest.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a challenge of, it was that Jon Stewart video was great, and I tweeted about the hypocrisy of the system, but I also know there's not a single Republican whose mind I changed with that video. I don't know how to find common sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm really honestly discouraged, and I have been for 8 years now, but things are just becoming so entrenched on both sides that it turns into, most people aren't voting for somebody, they're voting against somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where I'd argue that I don't think people were voting against people when they voted for Trump. I think they were literally voting for the stupid charisma that I don't get.
Maybe.
I mean, no one voted for Hillary or Biden that had a cult. Like, there's a cultism. Like, no one belonged to the cult of Hillary or the cult of Joe. There's a cult of Trump. I do not get. Like you can point out to their face, like Donald Trump could call you a pussy and punch you in the throat, and some of their
Yeah.
followers would still be like, he's just listening to what I want. Like, that is the point that seems weird to me.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what Iowa is suffering from. I mean,
Well,
Kim
that's
Reynolds is literally spitting in the face.
that's
of the
what a
people.
cult is.
Yeah.
That's what a cult is, and I think I'll finish up with this point. I have seen some reports of some Republicans that have come out, some Republican voters and things like that have come out and said this is these anti-LGBTQ bills. This is not what we elected them for. You know what I mean? We elected them for I can preface by I know what you're going to say, Tim, that they didn't hide what they were running on, right?
I was going to say, and they've already made it to committee, and that's the biggest
Right.
problem I have.
Right, but I do think that there is a majority of Iowans that don't want that, and hopefully that next election will turn that tide. But to your point, I can't tell you how many times they voted against their own self-interest. So
And that's what I worry about, is that all the Iowans that say, God, I hate what they did, but damn it, Jesus was a Republican.
right,
Like that's what's happening in Iowa right now. Is the greatest trick the devil's ever pulled is that they've convinced everyone that Jesus was a Republican.
Yep.
My sister's church has basically come out, and let's ignore that separation of church and state says that you don't let a politician tell you how to worship, and don't let a worship leader tell you how to vote. Like that, neither of those sides should happen, but that's what happens. Is the idea of, damn it, I don't agree with anything they did, but here's this one issue, abortion, gay marriage, whatever it is. Here's this one issue of, I don't care if they want to punch babies in the face, but they are against gay marriage. Or I don't care if they want to kick grandma in the teeth, they're against abortion.
right.
And support the death penalty. There's these weird single issue voters in Iowa that have gotten so heightened. I agree, Chris. I know there is a strong contingent of conservatives that say, hey, we don't stand for that. But they'll allow that because of this one issue that isn't even up for debate.
I 100% agree with you. The one issue voters drive me crazy, and I don't know how you get around that. I can look at some things that the Democrats or that the left do and say nope, not on board with that.
Sure, but again, it doesn't have to be at two sides. There are like a billion
Right,
ways to
yes.
approach.
Well, and I think I think that's kind of what I meant when I said in the tweet yesterday about Rob Sand. We'll go full circle here. Rob's approach to that thing with the University of Iowa was just common sense.
And it was pretty goddamn fucking conservative. It was pretty
Right.
goddamn right wing. Don't
Right.
charge the taxpayers money.
Right. And I thoroughly believe the two other people on that panel that voted to agree with it did it because he was a Democrat and they didn't want to give him a win.
Which is the biggest irony, because it's probably going to give him the biggest leg up when he eventually announces his
Agreed.
his candidacy for governor.
Yep. All righty. I got to go to bed. I got to go to Maquoketa tomorrow.
I was gonna say you got a big day tomorrow.
I do.
Sure.
I'm driving to Maquoketa to take furniture to my mother. So
Where is Maquoketa? I don't even know.
it's in between Dubuque and Davenport and the armpit of Iowa.
Yeah.
So, oh no, wait, that's Fort Dodge.
No. Maquoketa Caves, man.
Yeah, I've never been.
Oh, as an Eastern Iowa, I will tell you I've been to Maquoketa several times, although not in the last 30 years because I haven't lived in Iowa since shit. I haven't lived in Iowa in over 2 decades now.
See, it's all Tim's fault. He left and this whole place fell apart.
I was the glue keeping you guys together, apparently.
Oh my God, what a shitty thing that sounds
Yeah,
like.
I'm having a little bit of a technology issue because I can barely hear you guys, so I'm having to listen really hard.
No, you heard that right, Chris. I am the glue that keeps Iowa together.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Uh,
All right. Thanks for hopping on, Chris.
hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you, Chris. Well, shoot. With that, I feel like the perfect place to end is everyone agreeing that I was the only thing that made Iowa still sustainable as a state.
Yeah. That's what I would go with.
Well, this was fun. This was a fun experiment. I was really happy to see the people that popped on at least for a little bit.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Thank you, everybody.
I was really happy to see a Minnesotan pop on. Jolene, thank you very much for joining us for this. This was a lot
Who
of
knew
fun.
they had internet in Minnesota?
I'm sorry. We have a state government that actually works. We actually understand the infrastructure. But anyway, again, I moved up here 20 years ago. We understand how to run a place. No, we thank you all very much for listening. If you have not gotten a chance to get down to Revelton Distilling in Osceola, Iowa, 1400 West Clay Street, please go visit Rob and Christy. If nothing else, just go down. You tell Rob or you tell Christy, hey, I'm here because Chris and Tim sent me, and they will either buy you a drink or apologize to you and buy you a drink. But seriously, please go down, visit them, enjoy all their products, and if you can't get down there, go visit any Hy-Vee spirits. I don't even understand how the liquor stores work there, Chris. Where else can they find Revelton? Pretty much all over the state, right?
All over the state. They're all over the state, and you can travel down there to see them. But and we might even maybe next time we do this, we'll have Christy come on live and make a drink, and
I would really love to
taste
have
it.
Christy on. The last time we had Rob and Christy on, we let Rob talk way too long and Christy
Right.
not enough.
I know we buried the lead on that deal.
Yeah. Frankly, Christy is the smarter, better looking, more charming half of that duo, so we need to have her on. Also, I want to go ahead and give another shout out to Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage. Man, this is a weird time to buy a house, and if there's anyone who can give you a really good advice on what to do, what you need to just learn, what you need to do to prepare to buy a house, whether that be figuring out what your finances are, figuring out what your down payment is, what the market is doing, you go find our friend Kyle at Wintrust Mortgage, and he will help you figure out what the next steps are.
100%. We are. I think we're going to do this again with Side of the Storm tomorrow night. I think we're looking at 8:30 Central Time. So George and Brent and Marcus are going to hop on, do a little Big 12 preview tomorrow night, and then that'll be in your feeds to download for your trip down Thursday morning if you go. And things are going well. So
absolutely. Well, thank you guys very much for sticking with us. Once again, you have been listening to a special live edition of Old Man Strength, brought to you by Revelton Distilling Company and Wintrust Mortgage. I am Tim Johnson, joined by the ever-present Chris Shipley.
Sure, we'll take that.
You can find him at SciDad on Twitter. You can find me at Tim Johnson. And please check out all of the Three Beards Media podcasts. Old Man Strength, Hot Mess Happy Hour. By the way, I had a great time hanging out with Amy from Hot Mess.
Yeah, brunch.
At brunch, it was fantastic. She is a smarter, more charming, more personal person at Three Beards Media that we need more presence from.
That's right.
Absolutely.
She made it on time. She was on time. That's a no.
I got her a table, and I text messaged her, and I told her, hey, our reservation is 11:45. I got our table. You come find me. And she said we're on our way, and she was staying 3 blocks away, and they drove. They drove.
God love her.
I know, but so much fun. We talked so much about what was going on. She was up here enjoying the Big Ten tournament, talking about Caitlin Clark, and I for as much as a diehard cyclone as I am, Caitlin Clark is a generational talent, and I'm not going to ever
100%.
deny that what she does and the way she makes it look effortless, and the fact that it's even a debate who's National Player of the Year for women is stupid.
Shouldn't
It's
be. And we are
stupid.
We are so lucky in the state to have both her and Ashley Jones. I mean, imagine
Ashley Jones, who just won Big 12 Player of the Year,
right.
very clearly should have won Big 12 Player of the Year, right?
Yep.
We have the 2 best women's basketball players in the country, in my opinion.
Yep. And I will announce that George Trice is going to be a little pissed off. Maybe we'll let him be a little co-host, but I am in talks to have Coach Matt Campbell on Old Man Strength. So I'm supposed to get a text message back of when he's going to be put on the schedule. So be prepared for that.
So anyway, thank you guys very much for listening. We have so much more content coming out. Joel, thank you very much for hanging out with us for this entire time. We are very grateful to all of our listeners. Please, again, check out all the podcasts. I didn't even mention all the others. Film a Blank with Anya, obviously Hot Mess Happy Hour, Bitter Units. Chris, you have like 7 podcasts now. What else do you have going on?
Fall Starts with Bill Blank. Coming up this Monday, we are going to have Lindsay Fennelly on to talk about her story.
Oh my goodness! And you're going to let Bill interview her?
I'm going to let Bill interview an Iowa State Cyclone. So I've got the mute button and the. Let me tell you something. That Fall Starts podcast, it's got a little bit of a showing, but we talk about some really important stuff on there. So
it's been a lot of fun. I love to give Bill a hard time because Bill deserves a hard time.
That's right.
Literally, that man.
When you want to wish bodily harm on a referee, you've got some serious mental issues.
He does. His opinions on refs were very enlightening, very fun, very liberating, and also a little scary. But no, we thank you for that. Please go ahead and check it all out. But with that, guys, I have kept you on way too long. So we thank you, and we will catch you guys next time.